Welcome to the Attorney Post, your source for inside baseball talk about the legal field with the top attorneys in the country. Here's your host, Justin West.
All right, and I think we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game to help you navigate the ins and outs of the various legal fields and jurisdictions, because if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I am pleased to be joined with Jennifer Felipe. She's a trial attorney with lots of experience in both state and federal courts. She practices down in Florida, in the Miami-Dade area, as well as the Fort Lauderdale, Broward County area, and she focuses on personal injury and construction matters. In a few minutes, we'll be talking, but first, as always, let's jump over to her website and take a look. Felipe Law, F-E-L-I-P-E-L-A-W, link in the description down below, felipelaw.com, and this is where you'll find all of her information. You can see all the types of things that they handle, obviously car accidents, slip and fall, negligence, as well as construction law, and of course, they do offer free case reviews, so if you have an issue, as always, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So always seek competent legal advice. Before we get started with the interview, as always, we're going to jump over and read from one of our sponsors. Our first sponsor today is Groove Funnels. If you love spending $5,000 on building a new website and you absolutely enjoy wasting hundreds of dollars a month on hosting for a platform that allows you to sell products to your potential clients or customers, then by all means, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're like me, you hate that stuff. And that's why I personally recommend Groove Pages, the all-new, all-in-one website funnel sales platform from internet marketing legend Mike Filsaime. Visit theattorneypost.com/groove to sign up for a free website, and you can build it completely at no cost, really no cost. In fact, you can build up to 3 full websites, sell unlimited products, and attract affiliates, all without any fees. It really is the last online sales system you'll need. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife that replaces a lot of the different internet apps you may be already using, from ClickFunnels, which can cost as much as $3,500 a year just to use, to Kajabi, which is $2,000 a year, Vimeo, which can be $240 a year, Shopify, which is about $1,000 a year, all the way down to a lot of the webinar platforms like Groove Webinars or GoToWebinar, EverWebinar, and StreamYard. So really, it is just an all-in-one service. Some of these do cost money, but the base account that allows you to set up a website, sell unlimited products, and attract affiliates without any fees is free. So sign up at theattorneypost.com/groove, link in the description. Again, that's theattorneypost.com/groove. All righty. And I am joined with Jennifer. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing great. Well, thank you for taking the time out to talk with us. I'm sure it's a beautiful day down there in Florida. But you're stuck inside talking with me, so hopefully this won't be too painful, right? Well, Jennifer, prior to founding Felipe Law, Jennifer was a senior associate at a preeminent national firm. She's represented developers, general contractors, subcontractors, design professionals throughout the state of Florida. She's also represented Fortune 500 companies, national real estate developers, and has handled all aspects of personal injury matters from soft tissue to wrongful death claims. In 2019, she founded Felipe Law to provide her clients with the quality representation that they deserve. Ms. Felipe blends a high-level sophistication with personal service, and it results in exceptional experiences for all of her clients. She's a Miami native, and she proudly serves individuals in the Miami-Dade and Broward County. So first question, as always, Jennifer, is what did I miss?
So I was actually born in Cuba and immigrated to Miami when I was 4. So I have been able to learn a brand new culture since I was little and really assimilate to American culture and everything that it provides and all the wonderful possibilities. And I say that because it does color the experience that my clients have when they deal with us. In the sense that we are extremely inclusive, we're always optimistic, and the sky's the limit at Felipe Law.
Awesome. Well, awesome. I love a great immigration story. I'm proud to be an American. I really am. I love our country. I think it's the best country in the world. Obviously, we've got our problems. We always do. I don't think any particular administration is going to fix all the problems or cause all the problems, but I still love our country. And I think the foundational principles of this country are phenomenal. So, well, tell you what, Jennifer, why don't you start by giving us a short pitch for your law firm? Tell us specifically, I mean, I mentioned the generals, but tell us specifically the types of cases you handle, the types of people who should be seeking you out if they need help.
Yeah, so Felipe Law is 50-50 personal injury, 50 construction. And in the personal injury side, we represent anyone who's been injured in a car accident, slip and fall, negligent security matter, wrongful death. And then on the construction side, we represent not only contractors and subcontractors, architects, but also homeowners and business owners who have hired a contractor and for whatever reason the job did not go as planned. And we do that with the goal of elevating the standard of construction in Florida. It seems like, especially in South Florida, we're always under construction. And it's my way of ensuring that the industry acts accordingly and does so within, the requirements of the law.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this. Obviously, we've all been under the pandemic for the last year and some change at this point, and it's affected everybody to some extent. And of course, the response to the pandemic as well. And again, I've talked to attorneys from Canada, where the term is draconian. I've talked to attorneys in California, where the term is overreaching. I've definitely talked to attorneys down in Texas and Florida who seem to have a mixed bag as well. How has the pandemic and the response to the pandemic affected you, your clients, and your practice?
So from a practice perspective, Felipe Law is actually 100% remote. I have offices where I meet clients if I need to, but for the most part, even before quarantine, we were utilizing Zoom and all kinds of other software that enables us to reach our clients electronically. So there wasn't much of a difference in that regard, which was great for us because it was business as usual. However, the personal injury side really took a hit. There weren't, a lot of people driving in the streets. So there weren't as many car accidents. There weren't as many slip and falls. And so we had to pivot. And at that point, we really focused on contractors and subcontractors. And we're like, take advantage of the slowdown now and make sure your contracts are up to date. Make sure you have all your documents in place. And it worked out. It allowed us to survive the pandemic. And, now we are stronger than ever. So I'm glad that we were able to do that.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. So one of my favorite questions to ask, because I want to get to know you as a person. And one of the things that really tells you about a person is how they handle both success and how they handle failure. So we'll talk about the uncomfortable side first, obviously. Everybody fails here and there, right? And as long as you learn from your failure, it's not really a failure so much as a slow burn win. It sucks in the moment, obviously, it stings and our pride takes a hit. But I'm sure you've experienced something akin to a failure in your practice of law. Maybe it was a case that didn't go your way. Maybe it was a witness who said the wrong thing. Maybe you just filled out the wrong paperwork. But Jennifer, can you tell our listeners about a time in your practice of law where you did fail, but what you learned from it and how you carry that forward to help your current clients?
Sure. I mean, there's been a series of little failures along the way that has really attributed to our success and perseverance. I think my background, not having a role model in terms of like a business owner in my family that I can turn to for guidance, made me have a lot of failures in the beginning in opening up my business. I think I could have done things a little bit smoother. I wasn't really aware of the power of cash flow. I was so eager to make sure that my debt was down. And from a business perspective, I think with time, and I hired a business coach, and this eventually allowed me to get, past all of that. I realized it takes money to make money. And in the beginning, I was being very frugal. I wasn't marketing as much. And that was to me a failure because I thought I'm going to do this and it's going to take off and it's going to be easy. And it wasn't. It didn't immediately happen for me. But it happened at the right pace. And along the way, I learned a lot from my mistakes. And now I use that to educate others who are interested in opening up their own firm and doing the whole solo practitioner life.
Awesome. Our listeners know that I run a marketing company as well. So the podcast is something I do is kind of a fun hobby. It's a great way to meet people and introduce people to lawyers and create a fun service that allows people to meet you, which is great. But I've always been a firm believer in marketing, obviously. And I talk to a lot of attorneys who think that they just don't need to market themselves, and they find out, and I say this to everyone, so everyone listening as well, marketing should always work as a predictable spend and acclamation of profit. You should be able to spend $1 and make $2, spend $1 and make 10, whatever it happens to be. And as long as you're doing that, if you had a magical box and every time you put $1 into it, you got $2 back out, you would never stop putting dollars into that magical box. And marketing should work that way, obviously. So that's a great lesson. And it's one that I think a lot of business owners, attorneys and non-attorneys, kind of fall into is we view things like marketing as purely an expense. And I'm sure there's some marketing out there that really is just throwing money at the wall and hoping something sticks. But so that's something I'm personally kind of passionate about. So I'll chime in there. Well, let's put the shoe on the other foot, though. Obviously, I'm sure you've had some great successes, Jennifer. Can you tell our listeners about some of the cases or trials or clients that you've handled that you're just particularly proud of?
Yeah, for some of my personal injury cases, it's just really nice to um, come in contact with somebody who's going through the worst time of their life because they just went through an injury that either incapacitated them completely or, it just really changed the dynamics of their family because now they either have some kind of emotional trauma that they're carrying along with them. And honestly, for me, every case is a success once we're able to come to some sort of resolution for the client. I come from the world of defense. I actually started in defense, and I continued doing that for about 4 years. And while I learned a lot, I was always very hands off from the client because I was in a large firm, there's a hierarchy. And so I was missing that rewarding aspect of practicing law. And at some point, I even questioned whether this was something that I wanted to continue doing.
Mm.
And in starting from scratch, essentially, because I went from defense to plaintiff, which is two completely different worlds, I learned that in doing this and having that one-to-one contact with clients, that's what I enjoy about being a lawyer. That's where my success really derives from. And I mean, we've been able to recover, millions of dollars for our clients in such a short period of time. And before, I used to work on trying to keep people from making money on their cases. And now it's just really nice to be able to do that. And the other thing that it allows me to do is identify pro bono cases. I do like to do a couple every year. And, just being able to provide free legal help and advice to people, it costs nothing to me, and yet it makes such a difference to them. So I always try to make that a part of the culture of Felipe Law.
Gotcha. What kind of pro bono cases do you normally take on? Would they be normally in your normal wheelhouse, or is it something outside of that?
It depends. So I've done everything from like divorces. I've done everything
Oh,
from
wow.
immigration. And, as an attorney, you don't want someone who's a jack of all trades. But I always become competent in whatever area that I do. It's always a very simple issue that I take on. If it's something that's a little bit more complicated, I will refer it out. I have a huge referral network with partners. But if it's simple enough where I feel like I could do a good job for the client, then I will take it on. I don't care what the subject matter is. I will put in the time and figure it out for them.
Awesome. Awesome. So do you think you learned some particular skills working on the defense side of law that you now use to your advantage on the plaintiff side?
Oh, yes. So the beautiful thing about defense, especially working with a large firm, is that the resources are endless. And so I gained so much experience just taking depositions and every deposition that I would take. Now I'm a little more selective because from a plaintiff side, cost effectiveness is a concern. But that sort of boundless resource allowed me to dabble in every aspect of litigation and really dive deep. And so I learned what was important and what wasn't important. And I think the other aspect of it is I was working for insurance companies. I was working with adjusters. I know how they value cases. I know what they deem important, what they don't deem important. I went to trial. I know what a jury is looking for. So now all of that, I use that for my client's favor. So when I am speaking to an insurance adjuster on the other side, the first thing I tell them, I was a defense attorney. I know where you're coming from. I don't, start off with crazy demands. I'm reasonable, but at the same time, I can back it up because I know exactly how they're thinking. So yeah, it definitely has been extremely beneficial to me and my clients.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me ask you this. This is actually a question that came from one of our listeners, and I've had a lot of fun asking it, at least to attorneys who appear before juries. Have you yourself ever been on a jury, or do you think it would be beneficial for all attorneys, at least those who practice in the courtroom, to sit on a jury before they practice law?
So fortunately or unfortunately, I've only been called to jury duty like twice in my life, and I've never been selected. I think it would be a really interesting sort of paradigm shift to see it from the other side. I think, I mean, I would love the opportunity to do like a big case, and just for me, it's really studying, studying the techniques of the lawyers and what works and what doesn't. And I do think it would be extremely helpful to any new attorney, especially anyone who hasn't been to trial before, because everything up until trial, it's kind of hard to imagine what significance that will have at trial unless you take it to that point. So now, having had that experience, my depositions are not just, a task that I do in isolation just to check it off the list. No, I am thinking about trial. I'm thinking about, all right, what are the questions I need to ask today so that in a year from now, if I'm in front of a jury, it's going to be important for me to bring out. So being able to see that big picture is extremely important, and it really adds to the strategic thinking of any litigator. So yes, I would definitely recommend it.
Gotcha. I've had a lot of attorneys have very differing opinions on that, which is kind of fascinating to see. So it's I found it was a question I never thought about asking. And once I asked, I was like, I get some really good answers from that question. So I like that. So Jennifer, what's something in your practice of law that's really surprised you as you've been practicing law, as you've won cases, as you've lost cases, as you've learned about human nature and everything else? What's something that you've learned in your practice that's really surprised you?
So the most surprising, and I think the most beautiful aspect of my experience with this firm has been the amount of support that I've received from other attorneys. I started off again not knowing the plaintiff side, not knowing the pre-suit side, and I had so many other personal injury plaintiff attorneys willing to mentor me and help me. And I wasn't expecting that. I think I was coming in the defense world, things can get really competitive. Everybody's trying to be the top biller and stuff like that. And now in the personal injury world, we have this sort of mutual respect. We have this understanding that there is enough to go around, and everybody, provides that unique representation that no matter what it is, or how you're helping other people, your client's going to come to you because of you. But it was really nice to feel that support from other attorneys without that competitive nature. And so that's facilitated my creator versus competitor paradigm shift. And I'm just trying to pay it forward. So every time I see a new attorney, whether it's somebody from school or something like that, who's trying to go out and do their own thing, I'm always the first one to reach out and be like, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I will, tell you the shortcuts, because that's just improves our profession as a whole, and it makes me feel good. I like it.
It's fascinating that you say that, because, and I'll give a little bit of my background in this. Obviously, I do marketing. I do marketing for personal injury attorneys quite often, in fact, and I found it to be, from a marketing perspective, utterly aggressive. Right? It's some of the highest cost per clicks if you do AdWords, the advertising space, the SEO space. It's very, very, very competitive on that aspect. But you're also not the first, second, or even third personal injury attorney I've interviewed who said that within the practice of law itself, it's a very congenial field with a lot of attorneys helping each other out, referring cases and whatnot. For as aggressive as the marketing aspect feels, the actual practice seems very, very down to earth. And I think that's something I didn't expect to find, even when having worked with injury attorneys in the past, when I started this podcast, is finding this to be a common answer, which I think is really fascinating. So you're really kind of typifying that. And I think it's really kind of neat to see, which is awesome. I've also always had a soft spot for personal injury attorneys, as my listeners know, because they get a bad rap with ambulance chasers or whatnot. But I think you guys really do a great service, especially working on a contingency basis. You make the access of law, you make the practice of law accessible to the average person who otherwise couldn't afford, average attorney. Do you know what the average attorney's rates are down in Florida right now?
It really all depends. I can tell you from a defense side, a partner can charge, $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
But in terms of the hourly rate that we do per Florida bar, it's 33 and a third for contingency. That's pre-suit. If it goes to litigation and they respond, it goes up to 40%. But all of that is flexible, and the attorney always has the discretion to to change that depending on the facts of the case.
Gotcha. So my big point that I'm emphasizing is the fact that it can cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars to hire an attorney under normal circumstances. And most people don't have the pocket to outlay that, especially if they don't know that there's going to be success at the end of the tunnel. But I'm assuming, at least with PI law, you work on a contingency basis, which means, if you don't win, they don't pay. And that also gives you an added incentive. It kind of makes you a co-operator with them, because you do get paid more if the settlement is larger. So you have a vested interest in working on their behalf to make sure they get the largest possible settlement, which I think is oftentimes very fair. I do think that there could be room for people to abuse the system or be a little greedy, to be sure. But I think in general, again, it makes the practice of law a lot more accessible to the average person, the average blue collar worker who could never dream of affording even $300 an hour, $500 an hour, whatever the lowest rates are in the Florida area. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, absolutely agree in terms of the personal injury. And I can tell you my construction practice is an hourly based practice. And I think in the beginning, I made the mistake of trying to do those on a contingency because I felt bad for the homeowner or the business owner. Those turned out to be a huge headache. So that was yet another failure that I had to self-correct. And so now I have a set non-refundable retainer. And if I do get a client and, the claim is relatively small, I always tell them, listen, this may not make business sense for you. You may need another attorney. But the one thing I won't waver is on my hourly rate, because I learned early on, you have to maintain your worth. If you're not advocating for yourself, no one else will.
Absolutely.
So in the past, when I first started, I would be like, okay, I'll cut it in half. And then those always turned out to be the biggest headaches. And so now, I'm not scared to turn things down. It's like, it's not for me. And, the big ones will come, and they came. So I guess that would be another lesson or tidbit that I've learned throughout the 2 years that I've been in practice on my own.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense. And again, as somebody who is a business owner, I can very, very much attest. My clients that regularly pay me 5 figures a month, easiest clients ever. My clients that pay me 3 figures a month, sometimes I have to give them 8 reports a week. So it really, and it's a mindset, right? So when you have more money, and I think when you start out with any business, you do start out with kind of a poverty mindset. Like, I have to make this business grow. I've got to put food on the table. I've got to keep a roof over my head. And so I'll take any work I can. You're desperate. And I think sometimes the clients can feel that, and you'll take any case without being a little more judicious in the cases that you take, or the clients that you take on. I think that's very natural for most client-based businesses, marketing or law. But I think there's a real wisdom in working with clients that are, a good fit for you, for your practice, and you don't devalue yourself. I think that's a very wise decision. So, well, here in a minute, we're going to have some fun. I'm going to give you my magical pen, and my listeners know this is an InkJoy from Papermate. I am not sponsored by InkJoy or Papermate, but they're welcome to sponsor me if they like, because I love their pens. However, this particular pen is magical. And with this pen, you can strike laws from the books, you can edit laws, you can even add in new laws. So I want you to think about this, percolate on it for a minute. But I want you to think about what law or laws you would change that would directly affect you or your clients. Again, this can be something that's huge. This is a grave injustice against humanity that you want to strike from the laws or fix. Or it could be something as minor as that stupid form you have to fill out in triplicate 3 times a week for your different clients. So think about that. And then, Jennifer, we're also going to go back in time and find a young Jennifer, and we're going to give her a little bit of advice in starting her law firm. So percolate on those ideas for just a few minutes. While you're percolating, we're going to jump back over, and we're going to take a look at your website again. So we're going to jump back over here. Actually, this is your Google listing, and you've got a 5.0 on Google with 9 reviews. I always like to see those reviews. Lots of great reviews here as well. I always tell my listeners, make sure that you look into the reviews of the lawyers that you work with. If they have a 2.0 in Google and they have 15 reviews, then chances are that's not someone you're going to work with. But if they've got a 5.0, 9 reviews isn't a ton, but it's still enough to get a real feel for how Jennifer works and how her law firm works. And I think you could feel very, very positive working with her based on these reviews. And again, here is her law firm, FelipeLaw.com, and as always, link down below in the description. We're going to jump over now and read from our second sponsor. Our second sponsor is hundreds of customers, Rocket SEO. If you are a local business owner and you know that being on page 1 of Google is important, but maybe you're afraid to work with a search engine optimization company because you know that SEO is both expensive and slow. Well, It doesn't have to be, not anymore. Rocket SEO from hundreds of customers forces you to page one of Google safely and legally through the power of the news media. Rocket SEO utilizes national news media campaigns across the gamut of news sites that rank instantly. With Rocket SEO, you can boost your website's ranking in Google in 1 week or less with a simple system that leverages the power of major media companies, news sites and network affiliates of ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, as well as local news sources from the Boston Herald to the Sacramento Bee and all stops in between across the United States to put you on page one of Google in under a week, oftentimes 2 or 3 times on page one of Google for dozens of different keywords in a single campaign. To learn more, email press@hundredsofcustomers.com or visit hundredsofcustomers.com/rocket. That's hundredsofcustomers.com/rocket. All right, we'll jump back over here. So Jennifer, the magic is upon us. I'm going to give you my pen. And with this pen, again, you can strike any law from the books. You can edit a law. You can change a law. It can affect your PI clients. It can affect your construction clients. It can affect just the way you have to practice law and that stupid form you have to fill out all the time. What are you going to change with a magic pen?
So I feel like I'm cheating a little bit because I've always wanted this to change. And just recently, it seems like it might be a possibility. So maybe I'm just really good at manifesting change. But in Florida, at the moment, we do not have a requirement for bodily injury coverage when you have your car insurance. So I would get really good cases, and on the other side, there was no coverage. And recently, this has made national news because, the bill just passed the House and the Senate, and I think we're still waiting on Governor DeSantis to finalize it and turn it into law. But what they're trying to do is implement a $25,000 minimum for bodily injury, but they're trying to get rid of PIP. And I, in my perfect world, would maintain PIP, which is $10,000 of medical coverage that protects you. Your carrier pays that directly to your providers, regardless of who's at fault. And in addition to that, I would implement the at least $25,000 bodily injury limits. And I think with time, what it will do is, one, make people a little bit more cautious drivers because, who wants to have high premiums because of this coverage and who wants their premiums to continue going up. But also it'll guarantee that if you are in an accident, you will be able to pay your medical bills and get compensated for the pain and suffering that it inevitably causes. So that would be my change.
Well, that's a good change. You're actually not the first attorney in Florida I've talked to who I think mentioned that law. So that's really kind of fascinating. It's a hot topic down there in Florida, which is kind of fun. So, all right. So now with the magic pen or without it, I don't know, we travel back in time. We see a young Jennifer, fresh out of law school, green behind the gills. She's about to maybe go work for a large defense firm, and you're able to stop yourself and give yourself some advice other than, of course, buy a lot of Bitcoin. What advice would you give yourself?
I think I would tell myself to not doubt myself and my abilities. When I first started my firm, again, started from scratch, brand new area of law that I was practicing on the plaintiff side, I struggled with imposter syndrome. And I don't know if it has something to do with my upbringing where, as immigrants, our work ethic is to be loyal and committed to an institution and give your all and accept whatever they give you as adequate. I had to defy all of that, and I had really nobody to talk to, sort of just following my gut, like, okay, this raise didn't feel fair. Let me go and advocate for myself for a little bit more. Or, you know what, I don't know how to do this, but I there's been things that I haven't known how to do before, and I figure it out. So let me just go and do it. And I wish I would have avoided a lot of the doubts and the hesitancy, because I think ultimately I would have the same result, but I would have enjoyed the process a little bit more. And having the opportunity to run my own business. At first I just felt unemployed, but now it's 2 years, we're thriving. Being able to run my own business and do so in a manner that allows me to help other people, it's a beautiful thing. So I should have never doubted my ability and my desire to be able to do that. So that would be the biggest advice I would give my younger self.
Well, that's great advice. And it sounds like following that advice currently is working out really well for you. So that's awesome. Well, Jennifer, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that it's very, very valuable. Before we go, I do like to let my guests have the final word. So is there any parting words of wisdom or last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Sure. I mean, I would like to give my email address to anybody who's watching, who might have any kinds of questions regarding going out on their own, perhaps hiring a business coach, the value that a business coach may add. What's the best way to have a remote practice and work from anywhere. I have remote staff and that works beautifully. So my email address is jfelipe@felipelaw.com. And I will make myself available to anyone who has any questions that I may be able to answer.
Well, that is incredibly generous of you, Jennifer. And I will make sure, if you're willing to, I will include that, as well as obviously your law firm and everything else down below in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to Jennifer, she sounds like an amazing resource, and she's been beyond generous to give her personal email out there. So I might put a space in between the Felipe and the law, just to make sure that spammers who are seeing this can't just scrape the information and spam you. But she's been very, very generous to do that. So if you guys want to reach out to Jennifer, that's a great way to contact her. So, well, Jennifer, thank you very much for meeting with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation. You seemed like you have a great head on your shoulders. This is the Attorney Post. Again, I've been chatting with Jennifer Felipe of the Felipe Law Firm. If you have an issue dealing with personal injury or construction, and you're down in the Florida area, particularly the Miami-Dade or Broward County areas, definitely reach out to Jennifer, felipelaw.com, link in the description down below. As always, this podcast itself, though we talk about legal stuff, does not constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matter that you need help with. Obviously, I think Jennifer would be a great resource for you guys, so please feel free to reach out to her. As well, again, my name is Justin. I am your host, as always. This has been the Attorney Post. You can find us online at theattorneypost.com. And of course, you can listen to us on YouTube, as well as all your major podcast channels: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, etc. We always do appreciate a like, a subscribe, a share, and a comment. And until next time, remember, guys and gals, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Thanks for listening, and have a great Memorial Day weekend. Bye-bye.